Welcome back to United We Stand, Divided We podcast. Of course, I am Lionel in Canada. We have our co-host introduce himself real quick there.
Robert in Nashville, Tennessee, just outside. Just outside Nashville, Tennessee, in the U.S. of A.
There you go. Speaking of which, we all know that there's some news. Some people are going to be jumping up and down, and there might be a few sad people about it. Ray Gunn has quit.
We should have a ticker at the bottom.
Film at 11. Ray. That's actually, I'm sorry. Listen, Ray Gunn, if you happen to ever see a clip of this, and I doubt it, but if you do, I wish you all the best. You're a human being. You don't deserve to be shat on. But hopefully you understand where people are coming from. So I don't want to be the mean person, but there's a lot of funny to it. I'm sorry. Not that she's quitting because of that. If she enjoys doing what she's doing and she wants to do it, and all the power to her. And apparently what she's doing is she says, I still enjoy breaking, but I do it at home. So, good on you. You're a human being. You deserve to be happy. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. I had my laughter. Make your choice. But to the actual world news, I'll leave it to Robert to say this because I don't even want it coming out of my mouth.
So obviously everybody knows it was the elections in the U.S. yesterday, and yes, Donald Trump has won a re-election and is now the 47th president of the United States for a second term. And we don't talk heavy politics on this channel, so we're not going to get into all the rights and wrongs and this and that's. I think Lionel and I think the same about the whole situation. I know there's a lot of people who don't, so we're just going to kind of leave it at that. However, I will say that it's pretty. I'm not even sure what to think about it, honestly, considering everything that's happened between the insurrection issue and him being actually found guilty, money issues, and yet he's still reelected as the 47th president of the United States. So nobody cares.
Yeah. And here's the part that I'm mind boggled about. I had a feeling that there was a chance that he was going to win. And I honestly thought if he did, it would be a close thing, and Kamala would concede easily and do the right thing. But instead, have you ever seen any of those videos on YouTube where they show those landslides and people are running for their lives?
Yeah,
that's what last night felt like. And I tell you something, I fell asleep before they even got. I think California had just been announced when I fell asleep. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning and they hadn't finished counting yet, but he had already won.
But he didn't win in California. California's
no, he didn't win in California. I'm talking about completely. Right, yeah. And where I knew that was going to happen was when he was at 200 and she was at he was at, I think he was almost at 200 and she was at 45. And by the time she hit 145, he was already at 230 or something like that. So there was like, and the other thing too is, and this one is where I knew it was going to happen when they announced Pennsylvania. I was like, no, it's over. Done.
Yeah, I stayed up to about 130 because I was following it pretty close. And once he hit 267, I'm like, that's it. There's no coming back from this. Because he got, all of a sudden they announced Wisconsin, it was announced Pennsylvania, he got Georgia. And those are huge, battleground
now
states.
The Georgia one doesn't surprise me, but if she had taken Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and help me out, the other state next to Wisconsin, what's wrong with me?
Michigan,
thank you. And everything on the western seaboard, including Nevada, then she still could have won. But the problem is, you don't get Georgia and Pennsylvania. I don't care what else you're getting. New York, California, and Oregon are not going to win you an election. Now, I know she got more states than that, but Though, like literally the two biggest states she got, yes, New York, yes, California. But
Yeah.
Oregon was, if I, am I wrong? Was that the next biggest one she got? Which isn't big. It was like 10 or 12 in Oregon. Or am I thinking of Washington?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, as to what electoral votes Washington
Yeah.
and Oregon have, but
Yeah.
um,
It's
when
not a
you,
massive amount, but it would have been a nice
yeah,
contributory factor had she managed to get Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and so on.
yeah, when you lose those three real key states, and with all the others going, like right now, I just looked. He's at 295 electoral votes. She's at 226. Nevada and Arizona still have not finalized their count. So those states are um, leaning or excuse me, he's leading in those states. So more
Yeah.
than likely, he's going to win those
He's
states,
been
which
leading in those
means, yeah,
states
yeah,
since they were at 30% last night.
right. So,
Um,
you know,
yeah, yeah. So it wouldn't matter anyways because he's already over. So
yeah, and it's yeah, it's well over the mark.
but here's the bottom line. If I'm not mistaken, and again, I think we'd have to look this up, or maybe you remember because you might have been watching a little bit longer than I was. But I believe that she lost all of the battleground states, or maybe won one of them.
Yeah, she I think has um yeah, well, I don't know. I should look at that. Yeah, I don't know.
The other thing is, and this was something that was popping off all over the place. Wealthy women of color, wealthy white women, and not so wealthy women of color were leaning more to Trump than Harris. And like,
Yeah,
what?
because yeah, she lost. Yeah, she lost North Carolina. She lost Georgia. She lost Pennsylvania. She lost
Yep.
Wisconsin.
Yep.
Iowa.
Michigan.
And it was, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, Michigan.
Yeah, I don't. It's like I don't remember if she got one of the. I think she was leading briefly in one of the battleground states, or it was
Yeah.
close or something like that. But inevitably,
Pennsylvania. She was originally they thought she was going to actually take Pennsylvania because it was
so did I.
real close, and she was actually a little ahead, but then it just landslided.
It snowballed.
Yeah.
Everything rolled downhill. And
But all I can say is, he better put his money where his mouth is, and there's key things that he said he was going to do that I think he needs to do, and in my opinion, the most pressing issue right now is the war in Ukraine and the Israel Gaza issue. I think, and according to him, he's put his foot in his mouth. He's like, I can end this Ukraine war in 24 hours, kind of crap.
Yeah, well, here's the problem: is that I actually have a feeling that he's not that in a roundabout and possibly really incorrect way, he might be able to do it. And I just mean it's not going to be like I'm going to threaten you and we're going to threaten to get involved. I think he's going to make offers that he's not supposed to make as a president of the United States to get Russia to back off. And he's not going to pay the price for it because he can do whatever he wants. He's on a second term, and he's got. And let's just be very clear: the House all red, the Senate very much red, and we already know about the Supreme Court. There is no Democratic representation that has power right now in the U.S. government. Now, again, if you're a Republican and you're like, Donald Trump, I don't like, but Republicans that I'm, you're a Republican. Remember, if you've got nobody to actually fight against solid policies in one direction, you will inevitably lose your rights. It's just the way it is. Every government that has no competition ends up being very dictator-like. And it's just the way it is. So that's the part that scares me the most. If the Senate or the House, either one of them, had even one seat over the line, then I'd be okay, all right. Well, there's going to be arguments then. They're going to have to work together. But now they don't. And that's something to be serious about. They don't have to work with anybody at all. And it scares me about Canada because I know everybody says, well, Canada, he'll get along with Trudeau. This is segue to this one. My thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was definitely my next point. And I read a couple articles today in how
This is
Trudeau
vodka, by the way. I'm kidding. It's water. Go ahead.
Trudeau offered his congratulatory, hey, congratulations. He made
Yeah.
a statement that says that the Canada-U.S. friendship is the envy of the world. I think that's going a little far, honestly, but obviously
There was
we
a
are
time when that
super.
was true.
Yeah, and it's not to downplay our friendship and our partnership in North America because it's tight and it's strong. However, here's
Yeah.
two key things, and I really want your take on this
Okay.
that I read in this article. Well, first off, one of Trump's plans is to put like a 10% tariff tax on all imported goods, which is he's wanting to try to force manufacturing in the States, right?
Oh yeah,
Well,
this was something he was talking about in his previous presidency.
right. Well, obviously that includes Canada.
Yeah. It does.
And so they're like, okay, so you're going to tax and tariff your most allied, partner. So I think, Trudeau might be trying to like butter him up because I was reading the article where they feel like that Trudeau might try to get concessions to where though if he does that now there's no guarantee he's absolutely going to do that, but that's kind of his that's been one of his things this whole campaign that Trudeau can get it to where he can somehow get concessions of those tariffs.
He's not going to be able to do anything because I mean he's going to have very little time because first of all, Trump is not president until January. Help me out here.
5th, I think, is when he gets sworn in.
And then of course just some things to do, and he's going to have to sit down in front of the press
Sure.
and do his weird where's I need something to hold.
Well, it's gonna take a while for
I got nothing but a chocolate bar, but just pretend that this is a folded a piece of paper and I've just signed it.
Yeah.
You'll remember that, right? Anyways, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he won't do it this time. but Trudeau is not going to win the next election. Nobody's going to vote for him.
Yeah.
And when I say nobody, I mean the Liberals may actually lose their official party status. That's something that happens in Canada, by the way, because we have more than one party. And technically, there's no limitation to how many parties you can have. There's always two big ones, and then there's a third one that may eat into that and can lean with one or the other to get things done, right? So, but the thing is, and this has happened before, the original Conservative Party, which would have been like your Republicans, they had done such a piss poor job for several years that when there was somebody that came along that they said, yeah, I think we want to, listen to this guy now. I think he's going to do a better job. And everything he said made sense. Everything the other people were saying didn't make sense. And the country came out at that time record numbers, voted like nobody's business. It was Jean Chrétien, by the way, or as you Americans might say, John Chrétien. Jean Chrétien. Anyways, and it's funny too because he had this thing where he talks like this a little bit, right? And he has accent, very heavy French accent, French Canadian. And somebody made fun of him on TV. So he comes out and he says, you should make fun and you think people vote this way for that. Well, at least I don't talk out of both sides of my mouth. I swear he did that. He said that. And people just went, yeah. So they voted so heavily liberal, or what would be similar to your Democratic Party, that election, that the Conservative Party, I think, went from a majority of seats down to only like 6 seats or something like that. They were below what is considered what they have to have for official party status. They can still be a party, but they have zero power. They lose voting rights in certain areas. So I mean, like they can vote on your normal things. Everybody has a vote, blah blah blah, right? Mm-hmm. But they can't have anybody in the cabinet. They can't, so on and so on. and they, in order to get back to official party status, no one would believe in them, no matter who they tried to get. So they merged a party that was extremely popular in Alberta, British Columbia, and parts of Saskatchewan with what was left over of the Conservative Party, and they called them something else. I can't remember what they called themselves. They gained a little bit, but people still didn't trust them because they were way too far right-leaning, way too far. So they kind of just went, all right, let's just completely put it together, and then they call themselves the New Democratic Party. Sorry, that's the NDP. I can't remember what they call themselves. Whatever it is, the New Conservative Party, whatever. And now they're just considered the Conservatives, and people forget that it's not the same Conservative Party. It's kind of like you had a different party prior to the Democratic Party, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it? Because I think the Republicans were there before the Democrats. Am I wrong about that? Wow. It was another party originally.
That probably goes way back, but there's always been
18 something, for God's sake. But
yeah, I don't know, but I know that a lot of times you'll have an independent that runs.
Well, yeah, Ross Perot comes to mind. I mean,
yeah, and really anything outside of the Republican, the Democratic, nomination is really just a vote stealer. There's never been a non-main party winner, right? There's never been an independent winner.
You have a two-party system. If somebody tried to start another party, it wouldn't work very well because of the way your system goes. With the Electoral College, if there was somebody else that was going to get those, they would be useless in the presidential race because you have to get to 270. So if somebody else did run and they did too well, then the Electoral College in one or more states would have to go, all right, who was the next closest? Right. So it would kind of make it useless.
Yeah. See, in this election here, you had someone named Jill Stein, don't know who it is, that ran as the Green Party. I don't even know what the Green Party stands for. And then you have Robert Kennedy that ran as an independent.
Wait. Robert Kennedy ran as an independent?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even hear any news about that.
Well, he got 600,000 votes. That is not news.
Why the hell? Why wouldn't they? I mean, I know not everybody trusts a Kennedy, and maybe it would have been a disaster, but could it have been worse than losing? Maybe they should have had him run just on the name alone. He might have done better. I don't know. I don't know his policy ideas, so no idea.
So, I mean, it's, and if I'm not mistaken, I think, didn't they I think there's a libertarian party or something.
Yeah, I think he did. Does anybody?
I don't know. Again, all it does is just take that, 600,000 or 1,000,000 votes away from whatever candidate you might have voted for. It doesn't really amount to anything. It never has. Ross Perot was if I remember correctly, I could be wrong. So if I'm mistaken and someone knows, please put it in the comments. Let me know, because I don't mind being corrected if I'm incorrect. But I think Ross Perot probably was one of the most successful independent candidates that I've ever seen run. And I voted for Ross Perot. I would have voted for him too, to be honest with you, if I was an American. I thought his policies, and I really liked him as a businessman. I just thought he was super intelligent, and I thought he would have done a great job, but obviously he did not win. But I voted for Ross Perot. I thought he would have been a good president, but
Oh crap! That came up in the wrong spot. I hate it when that happens. Let's turn that off. I have no way of opening something. Sorry about that. My background.
Sorry. So, but there's another aspect of this whole Trudeau thing outside of the tariff, is that they feel the Canadian government as a whole, not so much Trudeau, is worried about immigration, because what they think might happen, because, Trump's whole thing.
Oh, crap. I am terribly sorry.
My partner over there is playing with buttons he probably shouldn't be playing with. But let me just rephrase that again after I put myself on the right side of the screen.
No, don't put me back on. I have a reason for.
Okay. Well, now the screen is completely blank. I'm not sure what is going on right now.
It's not blank. Trust me.
My screen is my picture. Mine is white.
Well, you were there, and now you're back again. Trust me, you're running on the screen.
Okay, now I am. Good grief!
This is gonna have to be something that's gonna end up. We're gonna go viral because of this right now. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I lost my whole train of thought. Immigration, because Trump's whole plan is to kick out all the illegal immigrants, and if he does that, Canada feels like they might end up with this huge influx of immigrants leaving the States to go into Canada to avoid deportation.
Right.
So, as to whether, that's going to happen or not, I mean, who knows? But that's the other aspect of this whole thing, is that they feel like that, with Trump now in power, it's going to cause a couple rifts between the U.S. and Canada for those couple of reasons. But I don't know, like how your, immigration situation is. And, I mean, you could probably obviously speak to that, more than I could.
Our immigration situation is pretty much the exact reverse. So any relationship that Trudeau tries to make sound like is going to be as great with Trump isn't going to work, because he's been making announcements about how he wants to open up the borders for more people. The issue here is that, well, we're a very open nation, and we're like, we want all this different culture, and we love to integrate this stuff into our culture generally as a country. We also want to be able to maintain jobs, get a job. But there's so many people that are coming in so fast that just the jobs are falling out the window. It's becoming an issue. There's a lot of people that are having problems. And no, it's not that, there's a bunch of people from this country that are that color that are committing crimes. That's not the thing. It's literally great. You come here, you work hard. That's fantastic. The unfortunate problem is what about the guy who would have got the job had this guy not showed up, and the boss who hired the guy is now hiring them because they're like, well, these guys can speak the language of half the people in this warehouse, and half of them are not speaking English. This is Canada. You're not speaking French and you're not speaking English, and I can't. I've actually had to I've applied for jobs in an area not far from where I live, where it's actually, they said, must be able to speak Mandarin. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? This isn't Chinatown. I understand if I'm applying for a restaurant in Chinatown, but why do I need to speak Mandarin to work in a warehouse in Canada? Like, again, this is not a racist thing. Okay. This is I was born and raised here. If I go to China, I have to speak Chinese to get a job. I guarantee it. But do you think for 1 second that the Chinese government, and it's a bad example because they're communists, but it's just, do you think for 1 second the Chinese government would allow somebody to set up a business and say you must speak English to work here? No.
Right.
And quite frankly, they probably don't do it in France. Although, in reality, anywhere in Europe, if you work anywhere where there's going to be a lot of tourism, you're probably an English speaker anyways, even if it's poor English. But
yeah, well, unbeknownst to me, and I did not know this until I went to Berlin. I mean, Belgium, is that the country of Belgium has 3 primary languages.
Yes.
They have Flemish, they have French, and they have German. And I
German.
did not know about Flemish. So that was a new one to me.
That's their main language, really, originally.
Well, that's a very small portion of the population, and
No,
it's
it is
mostly
now.
northern portion of Belgium.
Yeah,
Right. That's what I'm talking about now.
It is now. If you went back 500 years, it would be different.
Well, maybe so,
It'd
but
be mainly Flemish and Germanic, but
yeah. So the walking guide that we had, he was born and raised in Belgium, actually in Brussels, and he was fluent in English and in French. And he says it's really irritating, and a lot of the real hardcore like Flemish, French speaking, they don't like each other because none of them can understand each other because they like refuse to learn the other language because they feel like theirs should be the primary and vice versa.
Well, they're so wildly different for starters. It's not quite like High German and Low German, where some of the words at least resemble. But I mean, if you speak only Low German, then there's a chance you're not going to get on very well in certain parts of Germany where everyone speaks High German. So,
it was just crazy to me because I think about the U.S.
and French.
Yeah, I think about the U.S. It's like, that's like having the state of Texas with 3 languages.
Well, what would be the third language in Texas?
No, I'm saying as far as size, kind of in comparison, like,
Oh, okay, I get you. Yeah,
it's like
Belgium is a lot smaller than Texas. It would be probably closer to a
well, you get my point. I'm just trying to make. I mean, I can go from coast to coast, and everybody just speaks English. I don't have to worry like, oh my gosh, I'm going to the Flemish side of Texas. No one understands me.
Fairness, there's some parts of the southern U.S. where you might have to ask them to repeat themselves.
Well, only because they don't speak good English, but they speak English. That's the difference.
Well, no, that's not necessarily. They could be speaking Creole. If it's English, French, Creole, which may even include Spanish at this point in time now. It's been so many years. Yeah, I know it's a weird segue.
There has been some Louisiana people that I didn't understand. So that's.
Do you know where Cajuns came from?
Well, the whole thing used to be British, owned.
But do you know where Cajuns came from?
Well, no, I don't know where Cajuns came from. Probably Canada.
Yeah. What was known at the time as Acadia, basically Nova Scotia, Newfoundland.
Oh, area. Okay.
Nova Scotia primarily, and New Brunswick. And it was called Acadia. So the Acadians, and I don't actually listen, I have to brush up on my history, but they were basically get out. Just to be blunt. So they ended up with a bunch of other different people from other areas that were very similar to the Acadians, and made the largest amount of the people that went to what is now New Orleans. And of course, over time, Acadians, they basically say Cadians instead of Acadians, and that turned into Cajuns.
Yep, the evolution of Cajuns.
Yeah.
Anyways,
and quite frankly, they're the N-word, the origins of the N-word originally are very similar. To be honest with you, we're not going to say it, obviously.
Yeah.
But it comes from the original word used to describe a colored person. That turned into that word. And again, we're not going to have, but that's what I'm saying. It's just that the accents from certain areas further down south, they moved on in a different direction than people that were further north or east or west in the U.S. because it's such a huge country, and different cultures made up the different areas, and the accents got different.
Sure.
And so some words, basically, you don't recognize them as having an origin of this word over here. So it is kind of funny because originally I didn't know about the Acadian Cajun thing, and I just thought it sounded like it. That's probably what it meant. So I actually researched it, and yes, according to linguists, proper linguists, that is how the word Cajun came about, as it just evolved from the word Cadian, which was shortened from Acadian. So there you have it.
Well, not sure how we got off on that that tangent about languages and
everybody down there is actually originally Canadian. Yeah,
yeah.
trouble in
So
Canada now.
that's my spiel on Canada and Trudeau and Trump, and we'll I guess have to see how that plays out. And unless you have some final thoughts on those issues as to what you think is going to happen, I guess we can kind of close the chapter on that subject, because I didn't really want to have a whole.
You know what I did? Yeah, but that's why I said we ran off with it because I didn't want to keep going on it too long, anyways. So let's do the worst segue ever and just get back into some technology. This, in my opinion, why did my voice crack? This, what the hell was that? This is CNN. No,
I don't know, but be careful what button you push, and you don't start flipping screens and cutting me off. And
yeah, okay, I'll give it my best. I'll give it my best. Well, this is basically about Google Pixels, specifically the Pixel 9, but I imagine, some of the other phones are doing a little good too, because, like sales, and you can get like a Pixel 8 Pro for like $200 right now in some places. And Black Friday hasn't even hit yet. So the Pixel 9 series is going on sale and all kinds of stuff. But here's the interesting thing. We had mentioned before, we talked about this before, and I remember when the Pixel 9 series was coming out, and even after it came out, I did say, and we talked about this again more than once, that Google with the Pixel series is not in competition with Samsung. They're not trying to beat Samsung, and they're not going to. And Samsung knows it. They're
just in bed together.
Yeah, exactly, but not in every aspect. Just enough that they know that they can pat each other on the back and go their separate ways and come back and kiss once in a while. And I said a long time ago that this relationship is going to be what is going to not only make Google's Pixel series more successful, but it's going to make Samsung smartphones way more enjoyable to use for people who otherwise don't want a Samsung phone, because it has more complicated stuff than a Pixel does. More stuff, period, but more complicated for somebody who just wants that. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. In any case, but I also said that what they're in competition with is with Apple. And of course, you might laugh and you might think, what? They can't beat Apple? No, they're not. If they did beat Apple, it would take them another 20 to 50 years, probably. And by then, Apple may fall out the window. But some other company that doesn't even exist right now might come along and beat Apple and Samsung and Google. This happens. Go out through history. Nobody continues to be on top forever. Someone else comes along. I used to own a Sylvania TV. Do you have a Sylvania TV? No. Do they make them? No. It happens, right? Hitachi. Would you buy a Hitachi TV right now?
I haven't heard that name in forever.
Exactly. Thank you very much. How about a Lloyd's stereo? I mean, they were bottom of the line anyways, but they don't make them either. So stuff moves on, right? In the meantime, the news seems to have come out that it seems that Google, the Pixel series, if you look from September onwards, is, wow, I can see my own... I'm seeing my mouse twice. Anyways, it's they're basically going. Well, that's why, because I've got the mouse going on that, and there we go. They're going uphill, and they've pretty much gotten around that 13-14%. And before you think, oh well, that's not very much. Well, how many not iPads, sorry, iMacs do you think get sold worldwide in percentage? Somewhere around 13 to 14%, I think, in comparison to Windows PCs or any kind of PC that can run Windows or Linux for that matter. They have a very tiny market, but it's a lot of computers in the long run. It's a lot. But the other thing is, this is going down at almost the same rate. Samsung has been very stable. Forget about this tiny little dip. That's nothing. Everybody's pretty much had a dip, right? They had a dip. Google they dipped a little earlier, and then they kind of plateaued, and then now they're going up. But Samsung, there is a slight rise. You just can't see it in there. But yeah, it's Apple that went down at the same time Google went up. That's got to be more than a coincidence.
Yeah, I find it odd in December of 2023, Samsung took a hard dip
Yeah.
and the Apple went up. Samsung, I mean, I think that has to do with because Samsung doesn't even release their stuff until January, February.
Well, yeah,
And
exactly. And you see where
Apple comes
you see
out
how they
in
went
the end
up.
of the year.
But
Yeah.
look at where Samsung did start going up a little bit again. It was kind of steady, but then it was a bit of a jump. And oh, sorry, I'm over here. The reason for that is because when Samsung phones come out, it's not like Apple. People don't line up around the block to get it. They wait to see if the bugs are going to get squashed, and then they buy it. They wait for the first sales, and then they buy it. But they buy it in huge, and I mean huge numbers. So while this might look like a small line for them, that's a percentage number of what they have. Sorry, this is just North America. Sorry, just United States, matter of fact.
Yeah.
So going in this area where they had that drop down, what was that? What does that say? 20%? I need to put my glasses on to see that up close.
It's just under.
Yeah, and they dropped somewhere around 18-ish or something like that. But then they went back up to somewhere around 19. And they're still hovering around that, 18, 19, 17, 18, percent. And again, that's US. Worldwide, Samsung is way, way higher than Apple. Everywhere else in the world, Samsung is absolute king. Well, not everywhere, not China, but most places like places like Europe and South America stuff, Samsung is very popular. But yeah, that's where they start coming down around the same time. So there was more people buying there, and Samsung, and some of them were switching over. But based on stuff that I've seen on TV, sorry, on YouTube, articles I've read on the internet, some of those people who switched to iPhone start switching back. And some of them decided to wait it out and try out a Pixel. And I've seen numerous videos and articles where people have said, I've been an iPhone user for the last 5 years. I used to have Android and I switched back. Or I've been an iPhone user my entire adult life and I just got sick of it and I want to try it, Android. And I figured I'd try something that everyone is saying is going to be the closest experience to having an iPhone because one ecosystem. I mean, Samsung does that too, but it does it with a lot of extra stuff. And I say that not in a bad way. Samsung makes great devices, but Google is deliberately trying to emulate what Apple is doing, and it appears to be working. Will they ever get Apple's numbers? No, because they don't know how to market like Apple does. But those numbers mean something. And will they fall off a little bit? Yes. But you know what? It's the shopping season and people buy stuff and they're going to buy Pixels a lot more between now and a little bit after New Year's. So,
which has always baffled me why Samsung does not have the same kind of release schedule as the other two and why they do it at the beginning of the year, because I think they miss the whole opportunity in this big, Christmas sales cycle.
I think they need
Black Friday and all that.
No, I agree, but I don't think they need to. I don't think they want to overdo what they have, because when they do that, there's two things that are going to happen. One, they're stuck in too much of a competition. It's watered down and everybody's numbers will go down because not everyone's going to jump on the Samsung. A lot of people would, but not everybody would. So they're going to get watered down sales. There's people that are waiting for Samsung's new phone. And the other thing, and this is the biggest deal, the chips that come out that are available for testing and eventually ready to put in a device, they're going to get announced in like May, June, fully testing in July, August, and implemented into devices somewhere around now, meaning Samsung's already starting their manufacturing process and testing with the chips that everyone else is going to be stupidly jealous about. Well, everyone except Apple, because the process that they're using is already ahead of everybody for that. But again, not again. Sorry, I'm saying this now. It should be noted if for anybody who doesn't know, Apple's extra powerful chips don't mean anything in a comparison state because they have a totally different type of operating system. The way theirs works, they don't even need as much RAM. It's technically more efficient, but it's also got limitations that Android does not inherently have.
Yeah, it's just different.
I'm just saying, in case Craig McCann sees this. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely interesting. I would not have expected it to be that significant of a change, because that's significant. That's a big that's a lot.
It's huge, it's significant as you put it, and it's great news for anybody who loves their Pixel phones and anything else Google device wise, because it basically means Google's going to put their foot down harder. Even they've had a long-term plan, and even people at Google said it was going to be years before they were going to. I think one of them even said, they didn't use the word viable, but they were hinting at the term that it would be several years or more before it would be something that would be able to sustain itself. And it looks like this is going to be the first one that comes close to it. And I say comes close because it will not get these kinds of sales numbers throughout the entire calendar year. The Pixel 10, with the first fully original TSMC manufactured tensor chip, is going to be the first really successful out of the gate and fully successful throughout the season, throughout all 4 seasons, rather, all 4 quarters. And that's going to be the big one. And they're likely going to do something special because it's going to be basically the 10th anniversary. So,
well, everybody has said that they feel like Google really hit it out of the park hardware wise with the 9, and it's very 100%. Apple-esque. And so I think that has a lot to do when you look at it and people hold it and they're like, oh my gosh, now I don't, even though they didn't have to before, that now they don't have to be embarrassed to have it, but it's it's a good looking phone. So I think
I know everybody's seen it already, right? It's not like it hasn't been seen. Okay, but first of all, that's just a phone. So what, right? But when you look at the back of it, if I cover you can't even see because the light's there. If I cover the back of it, and you imagine that there's an Apple logo. Can I hold this? There we go. And you imagine there's an Apple logo there instead. This phone it looks almost the same as an iPhone sitting there like that. But this is distinctly Google. And that's the big thing. It's got literally the brightest screen on a phone, regularly available in North America. And that is because some other one, maybe Xiaomi or something, came out with one that's actually slightly brighter. But again, that is so rare that it would ever get into that brightness level. And what you have jumping through hoops. This phone can actually reach its peak brightness way easier. You don't actually have to put it in, well, no, actually you do. You have to put it in the, what is it called? The, not automatic, what's the word for it?
Adaptive.
Adaptive, thank you. The adaptive screen brightness. And when you go outside and it's brighter, this thing just gets, like if I did this on adaptive brightness, it would probably even brighten up more than it is. And I've got it at like 100%.
Yeah, but see, I don't even, on my S23, I run it not, 24/7 at about 90%. I 100%. I just don't need it that bright. I never have.
The light is shown. Well, that's a little bit too much now. It's literally the light coming right off of it. See, now that won't happen with the S24. At least the main one, the biggest one, the Plus or whatever they call it, because it has that anti-glare screen thing on it. Does yours have that too, or is that get introduced in the 24?
It doesn't have any anti-glare on it.
Okay, so it's the S24 and up that's going to have that.
I want a screen that has anti-fingerprint.
See, this just got dimmer on me. Oh, now it's getting brighter, right? And then I hold it down like this, and it gets dimmer because the light's not on it. Oh, it just got really dim. So
the only thing I use adaptive brightness on is my watch.
Brighter? Did you see that?
I don't use adaptive brightness on my phone.
I normally don't either. I actually hate it. But there's an update that will actually make this get work better. I'm not putting it on right now because I'm busy doing this. Okay, I'm going to show you one more time. Watch it get brighter. See that?
Yes, we see
It
it.
works really well, and that's a dark picture. That's a very dark picture. I'm just happy about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a little happy about it, but because it works great. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'd like to thank.
Yeah, the Academy.
All right, I got to turn that off because I like you. I don't really like adaptive brightness. I just want my screen brightness at 100%. That's crazy, isn't it? 100%.
Yeah, I run mine at 90. I don't need it that bright.
I can't help it. I love my brightness on it.
Oh, me too. I like a bright screen too, but
colors, because the colors I get more accurate colors because
yeah,
the brighter it is, the more accurate your colors are actually going to be. As soon as you start taking the dimness, putting more dimness into it, taking the brightness out, the colors that are representing on the screen are not accurate or not as accurate.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's something that directors take into account when they realize, okay, this is going to play at a theater on a screen. There's only so much color is going to come out of this. So it's got to be remastered differently for DVD or streaming because they expect it now to be, Dolby Vision and HDR 10 plus and stuff. So they have to have that extra brightness. So they have to actually have it colored differently for streaming than they do for the theater, unless they're using the digital thing, right? And it's actually high definition, I mean, ultra HDR stuff in a theater, which can't really be HDR. It's all coming from light anyways. But so that's a different technology altogether. It's really fascinating to me as somebody who fancies himself an amateur photographer. But
yeah,
I digress. We've gone on with that long enough. All right. Do we have any other tech news we want to touch on before we, mosey on out?
No, that was it. I think that's kind of the key information. I think the whole world's been so caught up with the whole election cycle. I just there just hasn't been a lot of, I mean, there has been, but not anything that's groundbreaking.
I kind of miss the days when almost all of the Canadian elections were the same year as the American elections, because ours is basically October. Yours November. Our guy would get sworn in several weeks. Your guy would get sworn in a few weeks later, and the first thing they would do is sit down together. It was traditional for decades that the Canadian Prime Minister and the new U.S. President would their first visit would be one to the other. First phone call would be to each other. Somehow that just fell apart in the last few elections. And it was bothersome. But when they were the same year, a lot of their stuff when they campaigned, it didn't matter as much to, to a U.S. president talking to somebody in Alabama. But when they went to places like, North Dakota or Minnesota anywhere or
Minnesota,
Washington, and I don't mean DC, but Washington, the state, right? And they were campaigning, they would talk about relations with Canada. And if they went to Albany, for instance, they would talk about relations with Canada. And by the way, in the past, presidential hopefuls would actually go to places like Albany. You'd catch Trump going to Albany, would you?
Probably not.
Probably not. And with that,
yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's there's a lot that's changed that'll never end up being the same. So, but that's okay. I mean, nothing ever stays the same. So, yeah, that's a good point to slide on out. Kind of a short one this week, but we just had a few things to talk about, but very poignant and excellent information. So we'll see how these next few months go rolling on. I mean, obviously we got a couple months before he's even in office, so we'll
enjoy the blissful. Never mind.
Well, I hadn't been blissful, but yeah,
No, it
I know
hasn't
what
been.
you're saying.
So listen, I've been struggling for a season and a half of our podcast to come up with some catchy, goodbye thing. Everyone has something. Robert's got one. The guest comes on, he's got 10,000 times better than me because I got nothing. So I'm going to steal. I'm going to steal someone else's. And yes, I used to watch Stampede Wrestling. Ed Whalen, if you see this, is he alive? Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I didn't even know. Ed Whalen, if you or any of your family see this, I'm not trying to diss you and technically steal your stuff. It's because I think you're one of the greatest wrestling announcers or play-by-play guys, whatever you want to call it, ever. So I'm going to say it from my end. I'm Lionel in Toronto. And in the meantime, and in between time, I can't say that's another edition of Stampede Wrestling, but it is another edition of this podcast. We're not
And
going to do
I am Robert in the U.S., and
that.
we will see you next week. Peace.
Bye.